Hi, and welcome to another edition of Life Lessons with Scott and Friends. Tonight, I'm joined solo by Clayton, who has joined us over the last couple of weeks with Ryan Ricards, and Ryan unable to be with us tonight. But Clayton, I thought it'd be great just to have you on tonight and just have a discussion about parenting. We kind of covered, the falling in love, getting married, and the first couple of years of marriage. And tonight, just thought we'd kick it around a little bit and talk about some of the things as it revolves around being a parent, being a husband, and what all that entails in trying to raise kids, especially in today's world. So um, let you kind of introduce yourself again, and then we'll get into the discussion.
Yeah, so I guess start off with I'm married, been married for 19 years to Ginger, Lindsay, obviously. Four kids. I've got Jackson, who's 17 now, Jordan, who's 15, Judah, who is 11, and Jetta, who is 9. Yes, that is all J's. And then my wife is Ginger, which might as well be a J. It sounds just the same.
Right.
Um, and I'll tell you, the first thing I could tell you that I was expecting with four J's, I would get them confused, but I actually don't. My parents had 3 kids. We were named all different names, and I was always Scruffy or Tyler or Melissa. I was always called everything else, and the dog.
Right.
But I'll tell you what, I'm quite proud of myself for not really mixing my kids up, and it doesn't happen very often. So there's life lesson number 1.
Right. Right.
But having Ginge and I, when we first got married, we had kind of come to, I guess consensus is the wrong word, but we talked about it, and we always really kind of settled in on 2 kids, and that was going to be the Lindsay family. I not always wanted kids. That wasn't even a discussion. But after Jordan was born, I funnily, I can't even say the word, told the doctor, Ginger had C-sections in all 4 of her children. But after Jordan, our second child, he told, literally in the operating room, "Hey, doctor, while you got the hood up, why don't you take care of something for me?"
Right.
I said it jokingly. We had just obviously discussed it. We had our tubes tied. But God wasn't done. God really laid it on Ginger's heart initially that she really wanted kids again, and that 2 was not enough, and that we were going to needed to have more kids. So we ended up having a tubal reversal, and literally right after that. And those don't always take.
Right.
The success rate is not the greatest in the world, but it was for us. Pretty soon after we were pregnant with Judah, and then of course Jetta, and then we were done at that point for a lot of different reasons. But that's kind of the story behind how the 4 kids came in along, and kind of how the family was formed. I will say that being a parent is nothing like I expected. My life is definitely different. My life has definitely changed. It changes your focus, but I don't know. I guess I looked up to my parents when I was a kid and thought, put them up on this giant pedestal. And it turns out they were just figuring it out as they go along, just like I am.
Right.
I think I always thought parenting was going to be something that not that I'm saying it was easy, but it had this aura about it, if you will, but it's not that way at all. I'm literally, and I know you'll say the same thing. And I want to tell everyone out there that if you think that you're not the best parent in the world, or you can't figure out what to do, we're all in the same boat.
Right.
We all are trying to figure out on a day-to-day basis how to make this work as a parent, because we're just not all, they don't have the gift. So
yeah, there's not a manual that hey, here, read this, and here's the 15 points of fine parenting, and your kids will be great. The funny thing, or what I quickly realized as my kids started getting older, especially, was that, man, kudos to my parents, because how they were able to do what they did in raising my sister and I and keep everything going, you don't fully appreciate or understand that until you start to have a family of your own.
Yeah.
And now you are trying to figure out, man, how do we do this? How do we, how do we have enough money coming in? And, um, it really is one day at a time. I remember, like, when we were at Sugar Hill Church, Lisa and I would get asked all the time, like, hey, you got 4 amazing kids. Why don't you guys teach a parenting class? And Lisa and I would talk about it and be like, we are so unqualified, because it's only by God's grace, love, and mercy that our kids turned out as great as they did. Obviously, we did some things right. And the biggest thing I think we got right was our whole lives. Sunday wasn't an option. Sunday was church, and it was about God first. But beyond that, there were some other things that I think we got right. We certainly weren't perfect, but there are some things you kind of learn. So I'd be curious to know, what kind of early things did you and Ginger work around? How did you find your groove, I guess, for lack of a better word, of getting into that parenting mindset?
I'll tell you, Scott, I'm not sure I can answer that one. I think we're still getting in the groove. I won't really answer that question specifically, but something comes to mind that I think would be good to share is, and you'll probably experience the same thing that we did, but Ginger and I, and we've talked about it a lot, that it blows our mind every day how different each one of our kids are.
Yeah.
That they are completely different from each other. Some of them are very similar to myself and Ginger, but they're all so different. And the one thing that me personally has struggled with is how to parent each one of them differently. So I've been a manager for all my life. Even by the age of 16, I was in management. And so I've always had people underneath me, and I've always managed people and been somewhat of a leader, if you will, in some capacities. And I've been thinking a lot about it lately based on some of these conversations we've had. And I've realized that as a manager, one reason I was always successful was I was able to manage each one of my employees to their levels, to their strengths and to their weaknesses. I didn't manage it all very flatlined, and each of my employees would have to come up to me and meet me where I am at.
Right.
I would always meet them where they're at, try to build them up, or whatever it may be. What I've realized, I think, in the last few years is I didn't do that really good with my kids. And I'm trying to fix that, because I feel as a parent, what I was doing was I was just, I'm not a disciplinarian at all, but keep that level where I want them to be. And I was expecting them to always come up to that level. And I got to think about it. Why am I managing my work employees or even, colleagues differently than I'm doing my family? There's really no different. So that is one of the biggest challenges I'm trying to work on myself, is to really parent down to my, not down is like that, but you know what I mean?
Right.
Parent down to my kids to the level they are at, or up, if you will, to the level they're at, so that I can meet them where they are. And that creates its own challenges, because with 4 kids that are all different, you treat them differently, you get the question, that's not fair, and you get those issues, especially because we still have fairly, 2 of their kids are still to that immature level where fairness really matters.
Right.
So that is a struggle that Ginger and I are trying to really work through, me personally work through. And if I can get it to where, well, I'll even back up and say I'm a lot like you. I look back at our kids now, and people even comment to us, why you're, and we are very proud of our kids. They are great kids. And I can't figure out what I did right and what Ginger did right. And I know it's all God that did it.
Right.
But at the same, we've just been muddling through this thing for the last 17 years, doing the best that we think we're doing, or the best we can, and it's been successful. I mean, our kids are really, I'm very proud of where they are. I know they're going to make great things of themselves, and we don't have big issues. So we've done something right, kind of like what you said. But at the end of the day, like we've talked about before, our marriage takes three. Our
Mm.
family takes three as well. It's got to have God in the center.
Yeah.
Without it, I don't know if we'd be where we are.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point, and I'll agree with that. You realize, and I was fortunate. We were fortunate to realize that our kids were so very differently. And I've been a coach since I was in high school at various levels. And the one thing I learned early on, in coaching and being an athlete coming up through high school, that you treat people and you coach people and you teach people to their level. And if you try to put everybody in the same box, if you try to do everything the same way, it's not going to work, because we as individuals, we respond to different things. For one of the kids, um, if I try to be hard nosed and disciplined and really come down, they shut down. But if I would approach them in a way of, hey, listen, I know you're trying your best. I know you're looking to improve, or you're looking to do these things. You're not there, but let's talk through some things that might help you. Whereas one of the other kids, I would put my foot down and be like, listen, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Right, wrong, whatever. Get your act together. Let's go. And you get two totally different reactions. They would respond to that. So I think that's a great point, especially for young parents. Learn your kids, who they are, what motivates them, um, and parent to that. Um, I will say I think there's a couple of things that we got right, and we were intentional about. Is we never lied to our kids.
Mm-hmm.
We Any discussions, good, bad, um, we would share with them, obviously to their level. You're not going to tell a 5-year-old that there's no money. We're just trying to
Right.
stay alive right now. So no, you can't have McDonald's. Um, but you may tell a 15-year-old that. So you have to approach it and parent to the level, like you said, where they are and their understanding. But we never lied to them, and um, we shared the finances as they were coming up. Um, and the other thing I would say that we got right was, we no subject was off limit, no question was off limits. And so as they were developing and as they were getting older and learning and understanding more, um, we encouraged the, hey, what's going on with this? Or, hey, why do we do that? Um, Dad, why do you take part in this? And Mom, why are you doing this? We welcome those conversations. And so I think, being authentic, being truthful, and really having those subject off limits, those were some ingredients that helped Lisa and I. And what it does is, you get a question, from an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old, and you kind of look at each other and it's like, hmm, let's get back to you on that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you go and you talk, for me, talk to Lisa. It's like, so I think we're on the same page, but I want to make sure. So those types of discussions provide opportunity for Lisa and I to kind of grow together, and then for us to be able to be in unity with our kids. Um, so that can lead into a whole nother discussion, but
Yeah, it's crazy that, I mean, it's literally verbatim what I probably would have said that Ginger and I do. We've never babied our kids. I mean, even at a young age, we didn't baby them.
mm-mm.
We all, especially when they got older, a little bit more mature, we've always talked to them like adults.
Right.
We've always treated them like they're not underneath us, that they're part of the family, they're part of the family group. They're the ones that they're going to help make decisions together as a family. And I think it helped mature our kids at a faster rate, and they see the world already at a young age differently. Now, there's some other issues with society today, which I think I want to get into, but and same thing. We don't lie to our kids. I don't sugarcoat anything. If they want to know something, I'm going to tell them. If they're going to, same thing you and Lisa did. And I think that's a huge benefit, especially with kids now,
Right.
because of the society today, because of the challenges that they deal with and the information that's at their fingertips, and that they can see everyone in the world and what they're doing. If you're not open with them, they're going to know you're a liar.
Right.
They're going to quickly understand my parents are not telling the truth, and that Santa Claus is not real. Oh wait, I'm kidding. But that things that you're telling them are just not in line with what reality is, because they know what reality is.
Yeah.
And on that note, I mean, that is probably the biggest thing from a parenting perspective that I struggle with. Now, getting kids from newborn to 8, 9 years old, I look back on it, that was easy. And during that time, it was not easy. It was long nights and feedings and spankings and all those kind of things. That was easy compared to what we're dealing with now, from even 8-year-old and up, with the pressures, the anxiety, the ADHD of the world, and then literally just social media and what's at their fingertips that we never had as kids. I don't know how to parent that. And that's what we're working together as a family, is how to manage social media, how to manage other people's expectations of you based on what you see out there. That is downright difficult.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of advice I can give you on that, except flipping it back to don't lie to your kids, because they're going to pick up on it.
Well, the thing is, and we would have this discussion. Our kids were little, has the internet first started taking off. We didn't want other people answering our kids' questions.
No, yeah, exactly.
That made it simple for us. Because kids will find out.
Mm-hmm.
So what answer do you want them to hear? We always wanted to at least give them the comparison, or here's what mom and dad said, and go compare it. Now, like you said, with technology at your fingertips, you can Google anything and have an answer in 15 seconds, if that. So we wanted to make sure we communicated what our beliefs were, why we had the beliefs we had, and kind of the backstory of how we got there. Even talking about, like salvation. Very early on, I would explain to the kids, like, listen, we're going to do what we know God's calling us to, which is you will be in church. That's not a choice. You will take part in activities associated around that. But at the end of the day, there's going to come a time and a place where you have to decide what that means for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't do that for you. Mom can't do that for you. But we're at least going to give you the foundation so that you can make an educated decision or come to your own understanding and what your beliefs are going to be. Because I remember early in church, after I had accepted Christ, was a lot of my beliefs were based on what I'd heard, but they weren't really my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go back and say, okay, well, how do I feel about, abortion, or how do I feel about whatever it might be? I had to do my own research and do my own studying and come to my own understanding of what my beliefs were. And that's what we tried to instill in the kids. Become a critical thinker. Look at it, analyze it. At the end of the day, you're all smart. You can come to your own conclusion. I don't want to force feed or force anything on on any kids. And that was the same approach I had with coaching. Um, so anyway, kind of got on a tangent there, but it's I think the point is to be truthful, no subject off limits, because the subjects, just because you don't want to talk about them, they don't go away.
They don't. You can't hide those in a closet.
No.
And my parents were the same way with me.
Mm-hmm.
And Ginger's were a little bit different, but I think she picked up on quickly on how I was and how my parents were when we first got married, and that we kind of came to a conclusion. That's the way we're going to. I mean, that's the way she was as a person. Anyway, her parents weren't quite like that, but my parents were. They were very open with us, and I felt it was natural for me to be that way. It's kind of the way I am anyway. I'm very transparent to anyone. It's easier to be transparent than it is to lie and dig yourself into a hole.
Right.
So I had the foundation already to do it that way based on the way my parents parented us. And it's, to me, it's so far it's tried and true. Not saying that works for every, just like we've talked about, every kid's different. It's not going to work for every kid. Some kids have emotional disabilities, have social problems that won't work for. I mean, there are some parents out there that are dealing with things that this is not going to fit in that box. You're going to have to do it a completely different way.
Right.
So it goes back to knowing your kid and knowing their personality. But to know your kid and know your personality, you have to spend time with your kids and be around them. So, and that's difficult in this world. It's difficult in these times. We all have the problems, especially as males, as generally speaking, the leader of the family, generally speaking, the ones that are the breadwinners, if you will.
Right.
I'm not to be sexist in any way. That's not my point.
No.
That doesn't always hold true. But when our days are 15-hour days, it does hurt the time that when we can't spend time with our kids sometimes. So you got to find that time to actually do it when you have free time to learn who your kids are. Do I fail in that? Oh yeah, all the time.
Yep. But
when I am with my kids, it is intentional for me to understand who they are, or that is my intent, at least.
Yeah.
It's intent. My intent is to be intentional. Think about that one 3 times. But that to be able to learn your kids, you have to spend time with them.
Yeah, it was especially with the girls as they started getting 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And Lisa really instilled this with me, was to take them on dates. And we would have those father-daughter dates. You brought up something earlier I want to go back to, because I think it's something that is key in what you said for your kids, and I know it's true for us. We never try to hide the kids, or, hey, the adults are here, so you guys go. We never did that. When we had people over, or we were in a setting where there were adults around, we never asked our kids, hey, go play in the back room or go outside. If you want to go outside, if you want to go hang out back there, fine, knock yourself out. But if you want to stay here, then you're welcome to stay here. And to your point, I think it helped them mature faster. They were able to have conversations with adults. They never backed away from conversations. I'll tell this story because it's fun. Two stories. At Christmas time, when we go to the mall, this was in Florida. We go to the mall. Lisa go in, do her shopping, and the kids and I would be outside in the main area, whatever. And we would look and we would find people, and we would take turns, and you had to make up a story. So you see an older couple walking toward us and be like, hey, Andrea, what's her story? And we would have those kind of make-believe sessions and storytelling. And it was just a fun time. The other thing that we would do, or that I would challenge the kids to do from time to time, is put them in situations where they had to talk to adults. So I remember one time being at Ryan's Steakhouse in Moultrie, Georgia, and Kyle was probably 9 or 10, and we were talking, and I forget how it come up, but anyway, I said, well, why don't you go ask the manager for an application? and maybe you can get a job here. And he's like, okay. And he does. He goes over, introduces himself, and talks to the manager. He comes back. He's got the sheet of paper, and he's like, I talked to the manager. He says I have to wait a little while, until I'm 16. Um, but he's very impressed that I came over. I was like, cool. So it was not shying away from that adult interaction for the kids. We had no problem taking them to parties. We had no problems being in church. We had no problems with worried about, hey, are they going to act up? Because that wasn't a choice they had. Um, so
Well,
anyway,
yeah,
that's a
let me
couple
say,
of things.
yeah, and let me piggyback on that as a warning to people as well. If your relationship with your wife or your relationship with God is not strong enough, or your attitude and who you are is not strong enough, don't parent that way, because your kids will see and mimic everything you do.
Yep.
And I know that for a fact, not because I've done something wrong and they've done something wrong in return. Well, I'll tell a story about that. But my kids will surprise me a lot. Similar to that story you said about going to the manager, there are a lot of situations, I can't think of one right off the hand, but a lot of situations that I've come up with, and I'm like, wait, my kid just did what? He stepped up and did what? He
Yep.
said what to that person? He actually had the gumption to go up and whatever it may be. And I'm like, where did he learn that from? And I'm like, wow. Then I go, okay, then they have been listening. When you think they're not, and you push them so hard sometimes, and you think they're not paying attention at all, they are. So
Right.
if you're doing something wrong, and my little funny story is my lead foot in my car. My son has had 3 tickets and 2 warnings in a year, and one wreck that was his fault and a wreck that wasn't his fault. So that's me to the T. When I was that age, I had a heavy foot, so he learned that from me, and he's literally said, well, Dad, you speed. I'm like, oh, great. So
Yep.
I say that little funny story as a vignette, if you will, to people. If you have, if people that are listening, if you have some self-discipline issues, you have some problems, be careful on what your kids see, because they will pick up on it, and they will think that it's okay, and they will do it. Now, like I say, on the flip side, if it's a good thing, you're going to be shocked by your kids, because you're going to be like, whoa, and blown away that they are picking up on it. So anyway.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that you brought up is my faults. I didn't make excuses. I own
Mhm.
them. Uh, Not always. There are some things you learn as you're raising your kids. It's like, and it's so true, because some of the things that Kim, especially, she would be. That's my oldest. Um, she would be like, "But Dad, you." I'd be like, "No, I don't want to hear. I
Mhm.
don't want to hear about it right now." But Dad, and it's like, okay, you got to own that as a parent. When you have faults or you have shortcomings, again, it goes back to being authentic,
Mhm.
and it comes back to being honest with your kids to say, you know what? That's You're right. My temper, which is a hot spot for me, that is something I struggle with. And guess what? As competitive as I am, all 4 of my kids somehow are just as competitive and are prone to
Mhm.
have a little temper flare up. Back to your point earlier, they are watching. They do see how we respond, how we act, and they're going to mimic a lot of those same things in their own personality or whatever.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's a very real thing. The kids see and notice a lot more um, than we think they do, and so yeah, yeah.
I agree 100%.
All right. Well, yeah, we could go on all night. It's funny you mentioned, and for parents who may be listening to this with kids in the car, here's a 3-second warning about what I'm about to say. So, when you brought up about Santa Claus not being real. That's actually a title of a book I want to write at some point. Um, Santa Claus is not real, and other lies your parents have told you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for us, I will. That was one of the original things that Lisa and I talked about. I remember distinctly when I found out that, you know, that wasn't the case, and I was just so devastated. And for me, it was how could you lie to me all
Mm-hmm.
this time? You let me believe something that wasn't real, and I didn't want that. And so Lisa and I agreed on that. And I'm not saying that's for everybody. You raise your kids how you want to be. It was just for us. That was a marker that we wanted to follow, and it caused problems with my parents and I. You know, uh, I won't get into all that, but it's but it was something we were so strong about and felt so strongly about. We didn't want to lie, and we didn't want to be like, hey, we're so truthful on everything but this, or whatever it might be. So anyway, I when you said that, I just thought, man, that'd be a great title for a book. And
Yeah, it would be.
I actually I have a couple chapters that I've started on. So anyway, so any other thoughts? Because I definitely want to come back and maybe.
Well, yeah, I'm going to give you I'm going to give a teaser. So I think we're next session we need to start off with, when are you ready to have kids?
Wow. Okay.
For the young parents in the world.
Wow, that's a great question. Yeah.
Well, the short answer is you're not ever. Jump in with 2 feet. But let's discuss that next time.
All right, Clayton. As always, thanks for joining, and for those watching, please remember to like, share, let other people know what we're doing here. If you'd like to be a part of this, I'd love to have you join and just come on and tell us about your life lessons. And you can always send me a private message. But again, I do appreciate your time and hope you have a great rest of your week. Take care, Clayton. See you next time.
Go Braves.
Yes, sir. Peace.